Welcome back to the Morning Line, and I'm joined now by an incredibly special guest. No, it's not this shiny thing next to me. It is two-time Melbourne Cup winning jockey Corey Brown. Corey, how are you?
Very good, Kirsten. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thanks. All the better for being with you, of course. Now, you're running on pretty much caffeine because you have been doing as many miles as this cup has at the moment.
Oh, not quite as nearly miles, but I've been working really hard since it's been in Sydney. It's been visiting a lot of areas and a lot of establishments, so it's been good.
It really captures the hearts of Aussies. So I think from an English person, my biggest question to you is, why is it the race that literally stops the nation? Because when people say, hey, the Melbourne Cup, it stops the nation, you think, oh, yeah. But no, everyone genuinely stops.
They do, especially here in Australia. Like, it's not just Australia, they're stopping. Like, you go pretty much anywhere in the world now because there's been so much international, like influence and stuff like that. Everyone's stopping for it, yeah. So it's an iconic race. Why they stop for it, I don't know. But they do. But they do,
and
yes.
That's all that matters.
Yep.
All eyes on you, which
yes.
you'll be very used to. I mean, it has travelled some miles, which we'll touch on soon. You've lifted a couple of these, which we've already touched on. It's pretty weighty.
It is, especially the owner's one that you're looking at there. It, I think, weighs about 3.5 kilos. So once you stand there holding it for a little while, it does become quite heavy.
Becomes a gym workout. Do you know what it's made of?
Solid gold.
Just solid 18-karat
gold. It's made here in Sydney, Marrickville actually. It takes about 220 hours to make, and it's made by ABC Bullion. Yeah, so it's iconic.
Be worth a bit of money.
Approximately 750,000, they tell me. So a good house deposit.
God,
put it
that way. Yeah. Oh my word. And it's got these 3 handles on it because I was doing a little bit of research.
Yeah.
And it's because it's called the Loving Cup, is that right?
It's the Loving Cup, but it's actually for owner, trainer and jockey, so they all get basically a handle each. So it's the only 3-handled cup that they know of that's been given out in the world, and that's hence why it's got the 3 handles. It's one for jockey, one for trainer and one for the owner.
You all share the love, all the prize money, all
for
of
sure.
the above. Now, you've been pretty much on tour with the Cup. You've been doing plenty of miles. You mentioned that this Cup does even more.
Yep.
How many countries does it visit? Because it is a serious tour it goes on.
I think it's done 9. This trip, I think it's done 9. But the amount of kilometres that it's travelled, I'm not 100% sure of, but I think each year it does around about 40 to 50,000 kilometres each year. So it's on the road for a long while, visits lots of countries, lots of country towns. It's great, yeah.
And those country towns, it would be so special for them to have this cup, something so precious, come to such a small place. It'd be everything. They'd come flocking, surely.
They do, and to see the look on their faces, like you said, everyone stops for the Melbourne Cup, but to actually have it in their hands and actually get to see it with their own eyes, it's extra special. To see the look on their faces when they see it in its real, it's
its glory.
Yeah, that's right. It's like I said, it's a great feeling.
And I mean, well, to go to these small towns, you mentioned there that they all come flocking. There is also another initiative, isn't there? Because they have that community sweepstake.
Yes, what a great initiative that is too. It's keeping, like Joe the Cup keeper just said, it keeps it at the grassroots. It keeps the country towns involved in this iconic trophy. So what actually happens, it's a sweepstake. I think it's 8 days before the actual cup is raced. They get drawn out of a barrier. So then on Saturday afternoon after the derby, when the cup draw is on, each town, whoever draws that barrier in the barriers, whatever horse draws that barrier, that's the horse that they get raced for them. So I think it's a $50,000 sweepstake that goes back to the country town. It's got to be obviously donated to a registered charity, but what a great concept.
Amazing. Yeah. What charities have benefited from it previously, off the top of your head?
I'm not 100% sure.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I'll put you on the spot there. That's very fair. All right, I mentioned that you're a 2-time Melbourne Cup winning jockey. I mean, why just do it once, of course? Take us back to your first ride, because the year prior you placed second, and it was literally one of the closest seconds I think any of us have ever seen. To place second, did you just feel physically sick?
I did. I was very emotional, you know, like not good emotions, they were bad, but to keep looking at that photo and to think the number cloth chip that passed the post, View was a big horse that won the race, Bauer, small horse. Anyway, I ran a faster time than the winner, that's what I'm going to say, but to come out the very next year and win it on Jockeying was just a massive relief, one, but a huge thrill, because as a jockey, to ride in the Melbourne Cup, or an Australian jockey, to ride in the Melbourne Cup is what every young jockey wants to do. And close second one year, and thought, well, maybe I won't be able to win this race, but to come out the very next year and win it was just an absolute thrill.
So there were doubts in your head that maybe this was my opportunity and I have genuinely missed this?
Yep, pretty much, yeah. It's how many times do you get to go out into a grand final, which I feel the Melbourne Cup is, and have a good ride, and then to finish a pimple second, and I'd already had, like, say, 4 or 5 rides in the race, so I'm thinking, oh, maybe this isn't the race for me. I've had a few chances now, and it's hard to get a ride. You know, there's only 24 horses in that race, and there's jockeys from now all over the world kicking and screaming to get on their backs to get into the race. So, yeah, I thought maybe I missed the boat, but again, to come out the next year and win it was just a huge thrill. So
did that play on your mind at all? Then, if you're going into that second year and you're like, maybe I have missed that boat, what am I going to do here? Is it the thought of, well, I've got nothing to lose, or is it the pressure is on because I need to go one better? The
pressure is on, and to be honest, I was the only horse that travelled 3 deep in the whole race, so I thought the nightmare has begun again. And then about the 800 metre mark, crime scene, Kieran McAvoy popped out off the fence to start putting himself into the race and give me a little bit of cover and give me a bit of a breather until about the 400 metre mark, and then I'd travelled really well. The race was run very slowly, and I had no weight on my back. So again, he was in a good rhythm, but I was 3 deep. Yeah, and I thought the nightmare was coming again, but to his credit, he dug deep and we won.
When the race is run really slowly, what is going through your head? Because if you're sat there 3 wide, are you thinking, well, I mean, at least I can get in a rhythm here and I have that breathing space? Because if you're stuck on the rail and it's really slow, are you then panicking, thinking, I can't get out, I can't breathe? Yeah,
well, a lot of the horses and jockeys were in sort of trouble. You could hear them yelling at each other and they were clipping heels and stuff like that because the races run so slowly. But I was pretty much the only horse, other than the leader, that was just floating along, doing my own thing, breathing well and in a good rhythm. So I think that's probably what won him the race, and the nice light weight definitely helped him along.
And when you're hearing all these other jockeys sort of shouting at each other, you can hear the ground thundering, potentially the clipping of heels. What's going through your head then? Are you panicking, oh no, is something going to happen here? Or are you thinking, oh, I'm in a great position, good luck to the rest of you?
Yeah, and that's what as a jockey, and I've had a lot of experience going into the race, so I knew that I was in a good position. The horse was breathing well, good rhythm, travelling well. But they're all in trouble, clipping heels, yelling at each other, and the horses are getting checked. And so, yeah, I knew I was in a good position. Although it'd be 3 deep, I knew it was good enough.
Well, there you go. It really truly was good enough, wasn't it? And it wasn't just for that year. You did it again. You have gone on a roller coaster, because you've gone from placing second and thinking, I've missed the boat, and you're doubting yourself, and you're doubting that you're never going to reach this grand final. But then the opportunity comes to jump aboard Irish Rekindling.
Yeah. That day, everything was just falling into place. It was really weird. I'd chased 1 ride. I'd only been home from Singapore for about 6 months. And this was the only horse that I chased to ride in the race. He had a lightweight. He was coming from the northern hemisphere down to the southern hemisphere. He's an older horse, but being a younger horse down here. And he just, everything fell into place. I couldn't believe how good a run he had. He drew soft, but it was like a travellade on the inside of Flemington, on Derby Day, and then again on Melbourne Cup Day. And I was following Zach Purton, that you can see back there in the salmon and green, and he dove back towards the inside at about the 600 metre mark, and the heavens opened for me. I got out wide. I knew I had Benny Mellum covered on Johannes Vermeer. So, yeah, it was just another fairy tale.
When you cross that line, initial thoughts, does anything even go through your head, or is it one of those things where time stands still?
It's like, the time stands still. That's a great way to put it, because I always try to explain it. It's like you watch movies and you go into that bubble and you can't hear nothing but yourself. It's a really different feeling. I always say, if I could bottle it, and give everyone a taste of it, you couldn't put a price on it. It's unbelievable the feeling that you get from the 200 metre mark through to the winning post. But yeah, it's hard to explain.
And I've listened to some of your previous interviews, and you mentioned the importance of the clock tower.
Yep.
What is this? When you say all the jockeys look for the clock tower,
yeah.
Is that to time your sprint?
It is. Like if you're travelling really, really well, Flemington Straight is very, very long, especially after 2 mile, and for the Australian horses especially. So you don't want to be, pushing the button too early. So you always try and time it to the clock tower. Don't worry, I push the button a little bit before the clock tower, but it's always a great sort of landmark that you can keep an eye on to sort of judge where you're at in the straight. But yeah, it's a bit of an old, thing to say. You don't go before the clock tower. I know Malcolm Johnson wished he had his time again on Kingston Town, but look, it's just a landmark that they say don't go before it.
All right. Well, I'll know that the next time I'm riding in a Melbourne Cup. That's fine. Now, you've ridden Australian horses to win.
Yep.
You've ridden internationals to win. Now, I'm not putting any pressure on you. I'm obviously English. But if you could have your time again to choose between an Australian or an international runner, who would you prefer and why?
Probably the internationals. Reason being, obviously a lot of the trainers are bringing the international horses in before the Melbourne Cup, like Chris Waller's and stuff like that, but they've got the races to cater for them. Like the more 2 mile races. We haven't got a lot of 2 mile races, so getting on a horse that you know's proven over the 2 mile, I'd rather be on one of those. So yeah, I think the internationals.
And now, question then, because last year Willie Mullins, of course, brought over a couple of runners and we were all so excited to see them step out. But the difference between coming from the Northern Hemisphere, where it's winter, to then coming here in November, where the sun is starting shining, and I know everyone's going to say, well, it's Melbourne, it might not be shining, but last year it was hot trackside. Do you think that was the undoing of his runner in the end, or do you think it just wasn't good enough and it's as simple as that?
Maybe a bit of both. That was last Melbourne Cup day was extremely hot. I was obviously down there as a spectator, but if it was a normal spring day for Melbourne, I reckon the horse would have raced a lot better, but it was extremely hot, and stepping straight from winter into those hot conditions, it's got to take its toll. But actually, I think Willie Mullins got a runner coming this year that I think will run very, very well. Hippo D something.
Yeah, I think he actually, when I was just over at the York Ebor Festival, and we saw...
He was unlucky.
Yeah, and we saw also last year's Melbourne competitors jump out their skin, and we were all thinking, where did this come from? It just bolted in, and he's an interesting fella, isn't he, Willie? He can just get his horses when he wants to
right
peak,
time.
but it's really those iconic salmon and green colours as well, very iconic. Now, nominations have come out for the Melbourne Cup 2024. Corey, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know it's very early, but if you had to have an early pick, who are you leaning towards?
I really like the horse that won the Derby in Queensland this year. Now put me on the spot.
I know, it always slips your mind just when you need it. You need it.
Yeah, he won the Derby in Queensland. He's street, and he won by about 10 lengths. It's Michael Kent Jr. and Mick Price's horse. So
keep an eye on that one.
For sure.
All right, okay. Who do you reckon will get the ride?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Is it Warmonger?
Warmonger. Correct.
There you go. There you go. So Warmonger is the one to be keeping an eye on, team. I feel like I've completely racked your brain here. As soon as we started talking about the race itself, it's just so interesting. You're an absolute encyclopedia, and I'm just so grateful for you to be here in the studio with your mate. And thanks ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it. All right, punters, that was it. Corey Brown, 2-time Melbourne Cup winning jockey. Very grateful for him and the team at VRC for letting us have this shiny $750,000 trophy here in the studio. And we'll be back after this.